Welcome to Beyond the Inbox, an e-commerce podcast brought to you by Drip. In each episode, you'll hear from top e-commerce marketers and founders who will reveal the customer-first strategies they're using to grow their sales, subscribers, and revenue. Now let's get into today's episode. In this episode of Beyond the Inbox, I'm speaking with Bunch Bikes founder Aaron Powell. As seen on Shark Tank, Bunch Bikes is the leading front-load electric cargo bike brand in North America and one of the fastest growing customer direct brands in the booming e-bike category. In this episode, Aaron and I discuss Aaron's Shark Tank appearance, how Bunch Bikes uses community to drive referrals, and much more. Enjoy. So, Aaron, one of the things that really struck me when I was researching you and Bunch Bikes is you have this storied background with different businesses you started before Bunch Bikes. I know you were flipping phones, you were selling amber jewelry on Amazon. I'm curious, how did those early entrepreneurial experiences impact how you're marketing Bunch Bikes today?
I would say that my entire experience has been iterative, where like every year I learn a little bit more than the previous year. And even when I started, like these were all side hustles. They weren't, I never intended to start a business, 10 years ago. But one thing led to another. And, I realized that if you continually, improve yourself and what you're doing, like you just learn more and you start to get an edge over what other people are doing. So, I don't know, I just gravitated towards selling products online. It's a business model that made sense to me. I dabbled in service businesses as well. But something about having a physical product and the scalability behind that of like, you've got the product, now all you have to do is find more customers that want that product, and you can repeat versus a service business, which is tied to your time. And so time was always very important to me. I wanted to have the freedom to travel and spend time with my kids and my family. And so having a scalable business model was really the only path to getting there. And so, I've had a lot of different businesses, but ultimately I wanted to work on something for the next 10 plus 20 years that has an impact on the world, which is how I ended up in the e-cargo bike space.
I want to talk a little bit about, I know it's very easy to go on your About page and read about how the company was founded, but I think it's so interesting to go back a little bit further and talk about what actually led to you going to Sweden, and if you could talk a little bit about the experiences you had in Sweden and how those experiences led to you starting Bunch Bikes.
Yeah, sure. So early on in my side hustle days, I think I read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and something about this idea of just like freedom of time and being able to travel and do whatever you want and work from wherever you want. Like this idea I was like obsessed with. And so, that first business I had selling jewelry on Amazon, that was, I could run it from my laptop anywhere in the world. I didn't, we had 3PLs and logistics all set up to where I didn't need to have a physical location. And so, my wife is a teacher, so we had the whole summer. It's like, hey, let's go travel somewhere, and let's stay there for 2 months, because, I can work. It's just like living somewhere else for a couple of months. I can just do my work from here. Sweden chose that because that's where my great grandfather came from. Distant relatives live over there, and I don't know, just growing up, seeing my grandfather speaking Swedish to us, and we would do like the Swedish Christmas traditions and stuff with his family. So I always just wanted to go and visit. Also, temperature is very nice in the summer. In Dallas, it's miserable and you can't even go outside. So we wanted somewhere that was going to be nice and cool for the summer. And so Sweden checked all those boxes, and that's how we ended up over there.
It's interesting. I also read The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and I found my own way to Sweden. So that was something that I was really fascinated by when I was reading your story and how Tim has had such an impact on so many people, but I don't think he really realizes it. And I actually had the opportunity to meet Tim Ferriss in Sweden many years ago, and I told him, "You're the reason why I'm here. I met my wife. I started a family because of you." And I could see he was really taken back by it. And it's so fascinating how one book can create such a different trajectory for different people.
Yeah, I mean, it really kicked off an idea and a movement and people who have taken that concept and done different things with it. But for me, it was like knowing that I think maybe even a bigger picture is just knowing that I can design my life with intention and what I want, versus just floating through life, allowing it to happen to you. And then 50 years from now, you know, you realize, what have I done with my life? Versus being very goal oriented of like, this is the this is what I want. I want this, I want to have a minimum amount of work, then I can just balance that with all the family time that I want. I want to travel and see the world because that's very interesting for me. So how do I create a life that allows that to happen? And, he had tips and tricks and that sort of thing, but it was more just the bigger picture of just, oh, like you can do like what you want. Like internet and technology is like, you can leverage that to, have real scale and outsource and automation to your processes. It allows you to design the life that you want. So it's actually a really exciting time to be alive right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a good segue into, I want to dig deep into the marketing for bunch bikes. It's kind of an elephant in the room, but I'm sure most of our American listeners will recognize bunch bikes from Shark Tank. I know you've talked a lot about that in other interviews. I wanted to ask you, how were you marketing bunch bikes before Shark Tank? And my follow-up question is, how did you leverage all the interest from going on the show after the show actually aired?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, one thing that gave me the impetus to even start the business in the first place is when I had my first prototype, just riding it around town. I couldn't get down the street without people stopping me, wanting to talk about it. I literally would go like to our downtown and people would take pictures and ask if they could post them on Instagram. And so immediately I knew like, okay, this product is very cool. It's very different. It's unique. It's got a certain virality to it where people can't help but talk about it. And it's large. So, intentionally from the beginning, I put our brand name real big on the side because this thing is going to catch eyeballs. Even if you just leave it parked somewhere, people are going to be oogling this thing and checking it out. So from the very beginning, I knew if we get these bikes out there, they will spread, they will catch on. And so that I wanted a product that would be able to do that. But in the beginning, it was influencers. I'd find somebody who was influential in the bicycling space. I just let them know that we existed because this kind of product didn't exist in the U.S. So just by the fact that we existed, that was newsworthy, and people were like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll tweet out your website." Cost nothing, and all of a sudden we have all these eyeballs on us. So kind of influencers and just getting our product in front of people. Instagram, we did some Instagram stuff at that time too. Facebook advertising was really good for us before iOS 14 and a half, which was kind of right around the time Shark Tank aired, which kind of gave us a boost from there. But since then, now that we kind of have this larger awareness, we're not a nobody anymore. Now it's, digital advertising is becoming harder and harder. So now we're kind of focused more on community and grassroots and word of mouth, and actually creating a system around that to where, our customers are so excited and they want people in their neighborhood to be riding this bike and having this bike lifestyle with their family as well. And so you can actually go on our website and you can, we call it the Bunch Squad. You can meet up with somebody in your local area, take a bike for a test ride. But these people are like our advocates out there. And that's kind of like a sustainable long-term way that we're growing. But it's also updating our brand messaging and just knowing that, like, look, we're parents too. We get it. Our email campaigns are very I don't know, it's not dry e-commerce. Like now we're doing a sale and it's $200 off, and it's not like these impulsive purchases. It's like this long educational sales cycle that sometimes takes years. And so how are we educating customers? How are we inspiring them? How are we showing lots of user-generated content of, giving people ideas of how the bike can be used? Because it's, in this country, it's so unusual that somebody sees the bike. They don't necessarily understand right away how it's going to fit into their lifestyle. They've never seen anybody ride a bike like that. And so it's just like a lot of, we're starting to do more short form video and TikTok and Instagram reels now, just trying to, show what would your life be like if you had this bike.
There's so much I want to unpack from what you just said. I wanted to ask you more about the Bunch Squad strategy, because this is something I'm seeing a lot more now with a lot of e-commerce brands. They are starting paid memberships or communities. And I wanted to ask you, what does community mean to you and Bunch Bikes?
Well, first of all, it's just having a group of people who are like you and like-minded, so that you don't feel like the weird one. So it can be riding this bike can feel a little unusual because you're the only person in your city doing this. Everybody's looking at you. You almost become like this local celebrity. So having this group of people that can connect together, and we've got a growing Facebook group of owners people, and there's probably like a dozen posts a day in that group where people are just sharing like, hey, we rode to the grocery store, or hey, we rode to the park, or hey, some friends jumped in, or here's how we decorated the bike for Halloween. And like just having that community of people who can just share their experience with others, but also people who are thinking about getting a bike, they jump in and they see that, interaction between people, and it bleeds outside of the group as well. I'll browse Reddit or I'll browse other Facebook groups and stuff like that, and people will ask questions about various bikes, and without any prompting from us, our customers are jumping in there and almost selling on our behalf, sharing their experience. And so it's kind of cool just to see how it's kind of growing a life of its own, and to see what our customers are doing for us just because they believe in the product and believe in the mission of what we're doing.
I know that what we would call a cargo bike didn't really exist in the US before. And I'm curious, do you think this is a case of when people are seeing bunch bikes now, they're saying, oh, that's a bunch bike, because they don't really have another word for that type of bike? Do you think that's something that has almost subliminally snuck into your marketing, where people have labeled the noun, the brand, at this point?
I've seen it happen. It's not quite there. There's because there's like our type of bike, but there's several other types of cargo bikes, and they're all starting to gain momentum at the same time. And so the mass media is kind of latched onto the word cargo bike as like the defining thing. Remains to be seen if like this front load tricycle style, people will call it a bunch bike. I don't know. But at least in certain markets where there's like a lot of them, like Washington, D.C., people are like, oh, you're a long tail mom. You need to go get a long tail because you're an experienced cyclist and you've only got one or two kids or whatever. Oh, you're an urban aero mom. You definitely want to get that. Or you're a bunch mom. Like that's how they start to refer to each other in these like bicycle family biking groups and circles. So I don't know. Maybe it will.
One thing that really stood out for me when I was researching bunch bikes was the number of 5-star reviews you have. And I'm assuming community is a big part of that. But you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and you mentioned the refund policy and how powerful that is. And I was wondering if you could share some light on what is Bunch Bike's refund policy and why do you think it's so powerful in your marketing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have almost exclusively 5-star reviews, and it makes me a little nervous actually, because I wonder if people get on there and they don't actually believe that it's true, or like I've never deleted a review. Every single customer gets the same exact template, and they can respond or not respond. I don't incentivize anybody to leave a review. They don't get any discount. It's like you get the email, say what you want, and we don't really get bad ones. And I think part of that is like this bike is different. Not everyone's going to love this bike. It's not for everyone. But without being able to test ride it in person, if you don't have a Bunch Squad member near you and you can't try it out, like I don't want you to be stuck with a bike that you're not going to love. So we have a 14-day trial period where you get the bike, it's fully assembled. You don't need to put any work into building this thing. Ride it around. If it's not for you, you're going to know it pretty quick. And just let us know. And we actually have a white glove trucking company that comes and picks it up from you. You don't need to box it up. You don't need to disassemble it. Make it really easy. And we'll take it back. We cover the return shipping charge. So that, hey, you know what? You tried it out. Didn't work out. Didn't cost you anything. We'll, refurbish that bike and sell it to somebody else who maybe needs a bit of a discount or something. So, and so even if they didn't like the bike, they're still very ecstatic about how easy the experience was. And oftentimes, you can see in the reviews now, people say it's like the best interaction I've ever had with a company. So it's like, we actually answer the phone. We're going to help you out. We're not going to try to guilt you into keeping the bike or any shenanigans. It's like, no questions asked. You want the refund? Okay, we'll take it back, no problem. And I think that's helped, one, increase our overall sales because we're reducing that risk for the customer, but it's also increasing the positive experiences that people have.
I noticed so much praise for your customer service. And is that something that's happened organically, or is that something from day one where you said, we want to have 5-star customer service where every customer feels like they've had the best service they've ever had? Is that something that happened organically, or?
It's well, I think initially it was me doing the customer service, and it's just an extension of who I am. I care deeply about our customers, and as a dad like myself, I get what it's like to be a parent, and and all this, and so like that's just how I always took care of people. I couldn't stand for people to have a bad experience. I take it so personally, if somebody has a bad experience with us, and so that naturally has like led into me having our customer service people do that. But actually our main customer service person now, she was a customer of ours. She was like one of our most ecstatic customers for like 3 years. And I like, basically begged her on her doorstep, like, please, will you come do this for us? Cause you're so incredible and you're such a good ambassador for us. And, you understand the language and you know why people are buying these bikes. And it was so funny. She even like ordered the bike, canceled her order because she thought she was making a mistake and had buyer, like I can't do this. I can't ride this bike. And 6 months later, she comes back and she buys the bike again. And so she's gone through this whole purchase journey for this thing. So she like understands at like a deep core level of these customers, what they need. And so it was very hard. It's very hard to hand off the customer service. Like as we grow, it's like I got to delegate, but that was one piece it was always difficult for me to delegate that piece because how do you get somebody who cares as much as you do? And I think she cares even more than I do. So in this case, it's worked out well.
That's so fascinating. And you touched on something that I wanted to ask you about, which was you've got so many marketing channels working for you. And can you talk me through what is the buyer's journey for someone buying a bunch bike? I'm assuming some people are seeing it, they're going on the website, some people are seeing it on social. Can you talk more about the process that someone goes through from prospect to customer to advocate?
Yeah, so at the very highest level, let's say the coldest person, they don't even know there's a way that you can bike with your kids. Maybe they've seen the bike trailer or something, but a lot of our customers have 3 or 4 kids. Like, oh, that'll never work for me. So they're in this spot of like, there's no possible way I could ever bike. It's not even a thought. And then they see a bike. And then this kind of awareness that, oh, this exists. So it's like, number one, category awareness. Are people even aware that this category of product is a thing that exists? And that's like the biggest challenge right there. And then 2, the biggest hurdle right there is, well, that mom, she can do it. She's fit or whatever. I can't do that. That looks too hard. I haven't biked since I was in college. I can't do that. So there's like this immediate resistance, like that looks too hard. So then we have to overcome that with like, well, first of all, it's electric. And still today, most people maybe know what an electric bike is, haven't ridden one before. They don't really get what that means. But you see the bike, you don't necessarily realize right away that it's an electric bike. So electric bike, anybody can ride it. It's fun. You're not going to sweat. You don't need to have athletic clothes on or anything like that. It's easy. It's fun. Okay. And then at that point, then it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could bike with my kids. And then they start comparing all the options that are out there, not just our bike, but like the various styles of bikes. Do I want something on 2 wheels? Do I want the kids behind me? Do I want them in front of me? What's the deal with the 3-wheel thing? So then they start like being aware of the different types of products within the vertical. But once they've settled, you know what? I've got a bunch of kids. I want them in front where I can see them, then it's like, okay, it's a big purchase. How do I justify that? And then at that point, it's like selling the deeper purpose of what this is. This is an investment in your family and quality time with them. It's replacing, boring, stressful car rides with like these magical moments in this bike, it's turning like these everyday errands and like fun family adventures and making memories. So it's an inspiration at that point. And then, then it's, after that, it's just logistics. Oh, do I have a place I can store this? How do I charge it? Like, then it's like all the little logistical questions of how do I get it? How long does it take to get it? Do I have to build it? Like all these little logistical questions. And then you break down all those barriers and it's like no brainer. You got to get the bike. So that's the big funnel right there.
That's fascinating. I never considered some of the objections like level of fitness and logistics. That's a really interesting angle that I hadn't considered.
Yeah, or how do I transport? I want to take it to the beach. How do I get it there? Well, if you can't write it, well, you can put it in a van. You can put like we have answers to all these questions. We have answers to all these questions, but we hear the same things over and over again. So, it's just we're trying to work into how do we design a website that it goes through this whole funnel, which is something we're working on right now, is redoing the website. But how do we work it into our email marketing campaigns? And like you sign up for our list, we're trying to build out like these long campaign flows and stuff where how do we identify when someone's at a different point in the journey, and how do we give them custom messaging at that point? These are the kinds of things we're trying to figure out going forwards. Kind of because I think part of where we failed with digital advertising after iOS 14.5 came out is we weren't capturing enough of the leads, or we had a very leaky funnel where we'd get all these people on the top, but not enough of them would convert. And so, when advertising was cheap and targeting was great, it was fine. It worked out. But now I think we're in a world where your content has to be on point. You have to really be testing content to make your advertising work. But then you have to convert a lot more of that traffic. And so I step back on the advertising. We're not doing any advertising anymore. It's how can we make our website better, our email marketing better, our social media better, so that when we do turn the advertising back on, we're going to convert a lot more of those people because they have everything that they need, all their questions answered, before. So just making more of the advertising dollars that we spend.
I opted into your site via a form, and I wanted to ask you, are you using website pop-ups, or are you doing any kind of lead capture other than having forms on your site?
We do. We're testing a couple different things right now, but we generally do have a Klaviyo website pop-up. Sometimes we're actually split testing right now with an email capture, kind of just basic normal email capture, and then getting them to join, a link to join our Facebook group instead. We're kind of just testing how do different people opt into those. So I don't know. We've got one in the footer. We've got various places on the website where we can capture. Not part of the problem too is our sales is pretty low volume. Traffic is probably a lot less than people at a similar level of revenue or whatever. And so it's kind of A/B tests take a long time to work or give us any information. A lot of what we do is just by gut feel, because it takes so long, to get enough transactions or conversions or signups to have any sort of meaningful impact on a test result. So I don't know. We're trying a lot of different things right now.
On the subject of email marketing, I really wanted to discuss with you. I received an email from Bunch Bikes recently. It was a promotion for Valentine's Day. And one thing that really stood out for me, which I loved, and I'll read an excerpt from the email. Purchase your Bunch Bike between now and February 14th, and we'll treat you to a date night on us, childcare included. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, first of all, I had nothing to do with that. That was my customer service person. That was all her idea, right? But it comes from kind of the deeper way that we approach marketing, which is we want to communicate to our customers at a level that says we're authentic, we're real, we're parents, we get it, we know what you need. We're not just trying to, sell you on something. We're one of you, right? And so the campaigns that we do, we tried to think a little bit, what would get people talking? What would get them excited? What's different than just here's a coupon code for $200 off. So we'll pay for your date night. Another thing that we did for customers all last week is because we can't really deliver a bike faster than 7 to 10 days. So anyone who bought a bike leading up to Valentine's Day, we overnighted them. We had these custom Valentine's keychains attached to the key for their bike, and we actually mailed it to them overnight so that they could at least gift something to their sweetie at that time. So these it was a little card and custom messaging. So for the people who are shopping last minute, how can we make that a special experience for them and make them deeper connected with the brand and what we're doing? And you were impressed when you read that. The number of people responding to that email saying, "Oh my God, that's so cool! I'm not buying a bike right now, but I just want to let you know that was so awesome." So many people responded to that, so that was really kind of cool. So we're always trying to think of ways that we can, just get people excited and do something a little unique or special or different, or exceed the customer's expectations. Like, what would a customer normally expect from a company in customer service, in sales, and marketing, or whatever? How do we exceed their expectations all the time? How do we go a little bit further? So that's where those little details come in.
I love that, and I assume as you're doing that more and more over time, the more top of mind you're staying. And like you say, there is this long life cycle, and maybe someone is on your list for 1 to 2 years, and then they finally get that email campaign where they say, okay, now's the time to buy one of these.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's, Google Analytics doesn't go back 2 years. There's a limit to how far, at 90 days or something. I mean, so it's all anecdotal as far as how long is the sales cycle for some people. But I do know there have been people on the list for 3 or 4 years that eventually buy a bike. They're like, oh, I've been following you guys since 2018. It's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, so even though it's like, yeah, we're not advertising, our top of funnel is not growing super fast right now, there's still so many people in the ecosystem who are at least somewhat aware of Bunch Bikes. I mean, part of the reason I went on the show Shark Tank was I wanted some like massive top of funnel, just like base level awareness, So 5 million people see that episode. Most of them are not even thinking about buying a bike. Most of them will never buy a bike. But you have 5 million people who are now at least aware that like this category exists, And so there's a lot of people out there who eventually could, buy a bike one day. And so just, all these little touch points over time on social media. And I think why we're focusing on video now and starting to put more video stuff out there is I think that makes a connection much, much deeper than you could in an email or something like that. And so, we're testing out content with like customer content, but also content with me just talking, knowing like, hey, there's a face behind the brand and there's like actual real people here who care about you and what we're doing. So I don't know, we're trying to make it, make it as easy as possible for people to connect with us and feel a sense of community around what we're doing.
I'm not even going to try and touch that. I think that's an amazing place for us to start wrapping up. Aaron, where can people learn more about Bunch Bikes?
Our website, bunchbike.com, all social channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, at Bunch Bikes.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate the time today, Aaron. Many thanks, and I look forward to seeing what happens with Bunch Bikes in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You've been listening to Beyond the Inbox, an e-commerce podcast brought to you by Drip. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes. Thanks for listening.